Welcome back everybody. In this video we're going to continue improving our command line experience because at some point you're going to wonder pip, virtual env, other tools that you can just install a package and then use that package from the command line. How do you do it yourself? You're going to wonder that, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do it. And then on the scraping side we're going to implement an additional flag that is basically going to say for all the opponents that we collect, also collect their information. We'll start with a scraping problem. Since it seems a little bit easier at this point, I'm gonna create a new handler, and before I do it, let's rename this file bs_xpath opponents because it has nothing really to do with XPath anymore. It is more about scraping fighters from Wikipedia. So I'm gonna rename it wiki fighters. I'm gonna accept the refactoring changes that this wants to make. I'm gonna press OK on here. This is gonna open up main.py for me, and the change that took place here is from wiki fighters has changed automatically. Before I had bs_xpath opponents here. By the way, if you're wondering what the PyCache folder is, it's essentially when Python application reads in your script, it does a little bit of translation so that it actually can execute machine instructions, something called bytecode. And in order to make that process of reading your script and translating it into bytecode for the Python virtual machine to execute, this cache is created so you don't have to reread or regenerate bytecode for the scripts that hasn't changed. Really, as a developer, you don't need to be concerned about this folder and you can delete it at any point, and that is what I'm going to do right now. I'm also going to close wiki fighters so we can focus on our next feature. I will then add another command. I'll use elif, and if you're wondering what elif is, it is else if. If we enter this if statement, we don't enter other if statements. If we just have two ifs, if we enter this if statement and then the next statement is true as well, we will enter it as well. So this is just making sure that in your chain of if statements, only a single if statement is executed. Here I'll say that for all the opponents, I want to go in, I will indicate that with an arrow. For all the opponents, I also want to go into their individual information. Let's go ahead and implement this. We can reuse the two scripts that we already have. I'll define this at the top, get opponents with info. We're gonna have HTML to begin with. We're gonna call get opponents and pass HTML in there. These are gonna be our opponents. Keep in mind that we will have this collection over here. So the opponents here is a collection. Then for each opponent, I'm tired of spelling out opponent. For each opponent in opponents, so I'm just gonna give it an O. I wanna grab the link and follow that link. For this, I will go back into main.py. I'll grab from requests import get. I'll place this over here. I'll give one more space between the imports and the functions. I'll come back here and grab the original request that we're making over here. Get URL response, copy it, come back here and place it inside the for loop. From the O, I want to get the link and just get the result from that link. Do keep in mind that the link is sometimes none, so we will need a check. If O.link is none, or better is not none, then we want to execute this. From the response, I'll grab HTML the same way that we're grabbing it here, and I'll just pass it to the get fighter info. Come back to wiki fighters. I'll scroll down, get the get fighter info function, place it over here. I will then pass response.html, or actually it should be text. This will give me back the info, and I can store the info on the opponent object. Info, and set the info. I can also omit this variable and just set inside the dictionary straight away, and this should be enough. We'll then return opponents, and that should be it. Coming back to main.py, and actually before we do that, let's grab the function, come back, do the import, and make sure that we call it here. I'll open up the browser just so I can grab Khabib's URL. Open up the terminal, python main.py, target will be ops info, and then the URL, and then the output info, or let's say ops info Khabib, And there we have it. That was rather fast, and we've actually not collected any of the fighter information. So something has gone wrong. Let's come back to wiki fighters. For the opponents, maybe we just haven't iterated over any of the opponents and we haven't gotten the link. Let's first print the opponents that we're getting here, opponents, and then let's print the O that we're getting here as well. Like that. Rerun the script. Not seeing any printing, however, we are collecting something, so let's just make sure that it's at least not in the get opponents. We'll rerun this, and something fishy is going on here, so I'm not sure what is happening. Let's make sure that we're getting the correct parameters. Sys argv, and this is right at the beginning of the application. We'll rerun. Let's make sure that it's not the arrow that is causing this to happen, and looks like it is. Well, the command line doesn't like it. Let's be friendly with the command line. We will supply a plus here instead. We'll come back to wiki fighters. We'll remove this print. Now we know if there is nothing printing, we must be attempting to put something crazy in the command line. We'll bring this back up and we'll say ops plus info, enter. Now at least we get an error and a print from the wiki fighters. The issue is that the dictionary object has no attribute link. Notice that we are trying to reach link through the dot. This would be considered an attribute, however, link is a key inside the dictionary. And you can see that because it has the quotes here. Let's reach link through the actual key. And when we try to access it, we will access it in the same way. Rerun. That has finished running. We will open up ops Khabib info and expand this. And then for some fighters, we are going to see the additional information being extracted. If we go up here, Justin Gaethje is here, Dustin, and our weird Unicode characters, which we're going to talk about at the end. We're now collecting opponents with their fighter information, which is pretty cool. We'll remove the prints that we have sprinkled around here, and let's look at this a little bit. We are extracting the value from a key and then we're doing the same here. Python has evolved a little bit and makes this operation a little bit easier for us. First of all, if this key is not contained in there or we forget to add the key here, this is going to throw an exception. It will be a key error exception. To avoid a key error exception, we can use get. Okay? To give you a quick example, I'll open up my Python terminal and you can try to create a dictionary and call the get method yourself before you see me do it. But this is what this is going to look like. Key B, and then this is going to contain value 3. If I try to get key C out of there, it doesn't crash. However, if I try to do it this way, I get a key error. In the case when I call get, it is actually getting none out of it, which is pretty cool. We can then take this oGet, and instead of checking is not none, we can assign this to a link using a walrus operator. If this assignment fails, or basically evaluates to none, we are not going to enter this if statement. Now we don't need to refetch the entry in here, and we can just use the link. Let's exit our terminal, rerun the application, open up ops Khabib info, format, and again, check the information that we're collecting. The code now is a little bit more succinct and safer because we're using the get method. Now we're going to turn our attention to the command line. Why is it that when you're running virtual env, you don't have to say python virtual env.py? Why are we saying python main.py? The reason for this is because virtual env is an actual project, it's an actual solution, it's an actual package that you package up, you publish it. Currently, what we have is we have an environment in where we hold our dependencies and we have a script as well. However, it is not yet a package, it is not yet a project that we can package up and use as some kind of tool. In Python, if you want to have a bunch of scripts and you want them to act together as a project or as a package, you have to use setup.py. Since I'm not going to be able to cover the whole thing here, we are going to Google together so you know what to look for. Let's look for setup.py. This is obviously not a website, so let's Google Python setup.py. Here we have the first link, which is going to be docspython.org. And here you want the redirect to setup tools read the docs. In case you're watching this in the future and you don't see docs Python, you want setup tools.readthedocs.io. We'll open this and we see a little bit more of a, appealing website. User guide, quick start. Let's see what this is all about. We're going to go down here and we are going to go to setup.py. The other files, as you can see, they are not really Python, although they are quite similar. They don't look like Python. Setup.py is Python, and here is the quickest thing that you can do in order to consider your application as a project. We'll copy this. We'll come back to our application. Let's setup.py, place this over here. Setup tools is installed by default in the global namespace. So if you do pip list, setup tools is going to be one of those things that is already there. Anyway, you have my package name. I'm going to leave it at that. That is not really what I'm after here. I want to make my project a command line. You then have the version. Again, that's not what I'm after. And then you have install requirements, which is basically your requirements file. You can still keep your requirements file, or you can take these and put them over here. Notice that this is a collection. If we do something, along the lines of creating a new file, we'll just call it pytest. We'll go to main.py. We will go over here. We will grab this reading code over here, place it over here, and then we're gonna go after the requirements.txt file. We're gonna read it, we're gonna have the contents, and then we're gonna print the contents. We can then run this file, python test.py. We're gonna have a new line separated list, which if we split by the new line, I know it's a little bit hard to understand if you're a beginner. There is a character that sits on the end here, which basically forces these to be displayed in the new line. Kind of like when we collect our data and we have the Unicode characters in there. In some places they mean special things. Currently, as we collect them, they don't mean anything. Here the \n means something important, and that is putting new lines when this data is displayed. Let's rerun this, and now we have a collection. Furthermore, instead of just reading the whole file, we can use a readLines function. Then we don't have to split, and all the lines are going to be a collection straight away. However, do notice the \ns. In this case, you will need to loop over, sanitize them. This is why we're just going to read and split. Okay, just like that. And to put this on one line, I'm going to take the split over here, place it over here, rerun it. I still see the same effect. I can now cut this, remove the test file, go into setup.py, place this over here. These are going to be my requirements. I'm going to remove the print over here. This is going to feel a little bit unnatural. However, if you're not that familiar with scope or bodies of things, in Python, if a variable is defined inside a body, usually things that are defined inside scopes or inside bodies, they can't make it outside. In Python, it's a different story. It's so you don't have to do something like this. So you say the requirements sits outside and then you set it inside. Python says, don't do this, just set it inside and then it's still available outside. That is only true for statements. If that happens inside functions, it's a different story. Functions, scopes, and bodies restrict this kind of behavior. Anyway, we can take the requirements, place them over here, and that's almost it. We're not going to touch anything just yet. We're going to come back to the documentation, and I'm going to look for the entry point section, which is right over here. Let's click on this. Here, this is going to be an explanation of how you can run your application from a command line. If we have an init.py with something like hello world, you then have to create a main.py, which is going to import hello world from the ._any file or init file. I know these underscore files are a little bit confusing, but basically in some file, you're going to have a function, and this is how you reach it. Folder name, which is Timmins, over here, and then you specify the function that is in there, which is hello world. In our case, we don't have a folder yet, so let's go over here. And we don't really need it, however, let's be good citizens and create it. The outer folder is called web scraping. You should really name the two the same. However, I'm just gonna call this scraping and leave it at that. I'll take my main, I'll take my wiki fighters, I'm gonna place them over there. I'll move them. The imports now in main.py will have to change from wiki fighters to scraping.wikifighters. So we go from the root of the folder, and additionally, we will have to mark it with an init.py for this scraping folder to be recognized as a Python module, which is basically saying something like, when we are importing from places, when you go into the scraping folder, run the init.py and then go through all of the other files. And init.py, when Python is reading through the script, init.py runs only once. What you can put in there and how you can use this file, you will learn it more in the future if you follow the journey. For now, we'll leave it as is. We'll come back to setup.py and we'll pay attention to the setup because we're gonna pop back to the documentation and take a look at these options. Entry point, console script, command line name, and then which script to run. We're gonna grab this, copy, come back, paste it over here. We have entry point, console script. This is setup by specific key. You have to keep it as is. Hello world, the name of your command line. Be creative over here. I'm gonna call it wiki scrape. This will want to go into the scraping folder and then invoke a function, which we don't have. So let's create a default function, def default, and then give it a body. I'll drop down the terminal so you can see what I'm doing. I'm selecting everything, indenting it, and what I'm gonna do is get rid of this comment over here since it's just dangling for no reason. After creating the default function, I want to make sure I tell the setup.py that I want that default function to run. The colon over here refers to the function. However, notice that we're in the scraping folder. We then want to reach main. So scraping.main and then default. At this point, all is good. We want to make sure that we haven't missed any steps. We'll come back here. We'll deactivate our environment. We'll take venv info. I'm not sure where this came from. We'll take opskabib JSON. We're basically cleaning up everything. And then pycache as well. Delete this, move to recycle bin. Now that all of that is deleted, virtual env, venv. Now we activate venv scripts activate. Instead of doing pip install -r requirements where we would just install the packages, now what we can do is pip install -e dot. The -e flag basically means install a package from which directory dot specifying this directory. Pip install -e in this directory, enter, and there we go. What has happened is we installed our package, and because our package has requirements right over here, it has gone ahead and installed all of our dependencies as well. Kind of like parcel depends on LXML, and that is why when we go into venv, you will find LXML in here. That is because parcel depends on it. A parcel over here depends on LXML. Let's collapse down venv, go to pip list, and just to drive the point home that in our current virtual environment we have my package installed, which is this package, okay? And because this package has a console script configured, we can now bring up the previous command that we have been running, python main.py, and instead run wiki scrape. And this is going to produce the same result, which is just a bunch of opponents with their opponent information, bringing us right back to our Unicode characters. What do we do about them? Again, as I said in the previous video, most of the times, because you will be then forwarding it to some kind of UI or maybe Excel, same as we print them to our console just knows how to handle it. This right here, what we're seeing here is its intermediary format. We're collecting a Unicode character and we're making sure that we're maintaining that Unicode character as we're carrying around this information, deserializing it from a string to Python. We will then maybe bring it into XML. And as we're going from one data into another, maybe back HTML and then back to JSON, we want to make sure that we're maintaining this information. We're not losing it. Understand that this is part of the package and it's not a mistake that this information is being maintained. So what can you do? Can you go through some kind of process of just removing these letters? Sure, yes you can. If you have Python and a equals to some kind of string, and let's take this example. This is the kind of string we are gonna have, and we can encode ASCII, ignore. And notice first the prepend of B, that means we're kind of in byte format. This is not a real string. And we're also flat out just missing the space. If you don't mind missing the space here, this would be a space in the HTML in the web world. You are deleting information. The safest option here is if you see this sort of stuff in your data that you're collecting, you want to replace it appropriately. If you don't mind losing that space and having something like this is completely fine. Also, in order to exit this binary format, let's store this into B. So now B contains this value. We encode back into UTF-8. And sorry, not encode, I did mean decode. Thank you, Python. And now we have a normal string without the Unicode characters. Again, you can go through this process, but you're deleting data. Let's see what this is going to look like in our scenario. We'll go into main.py, where we are doing the dump s, and let's actually rename these results to JSON that we want to store. So we're going to store the JSON over here. Before we dump s, we are going to ensure ASCII, I think the parameter is, and then set this to false. We'll keep the stuff that we had over here in mind. Notice the encode and then the decode to UTF-8. You can copy paste the stuff over here so you can remember it later. For now, I will exit. I'll rerun to see what we get. And silly me, I'm actually overriding this import or trying to use this variable before I have it. So let's just say payload, JSON payload, have it over here, rerun. I think that's good. Let's reopen the file, format, jump to the top. And now we're not destroying the data, we're merely not escaping the characters. You can even see the tooltip here. The character blah de blah is invisible. Let's go through the encoding process because at the end of the day, JSON is just a string. Let's come back to main.py. We'll take the JSON payload. And before we write it to here, if somebody's more experienced is watching this, there are smarter things that you can do. However, we're just gonna go through the step-by-step process of first encoding it and then decoding it. We'll rerun the application, open up ops info Khabib, and look at this. We are now deleting all Unicode information. Again, perhaps this is not what you're after. Maybe instead what you want to do is delete it on the spot or replace it because you want to preserve that information. We'll come back to main.py and we will revert the options that we had just so we can see the effect. I'll comment out this solution so we still have it and remove all of this encoding malarkey. Rerun so we can see the Unicode characters again. Opening up the Khabib information over here. We'll take the Unicode character. We'll go into Wikifighters. I'll drop down the terminal. Slide all the way down where we set imperial and metric. And again, if you're not sure, you can always test this over here. You don't have the history of bringing up your previous commands over there. So let's just take this. We'll store this in a string. And this string looks something like this. We can then try to replace a character that may look something like this with a space. And this is the result that you get. And that's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this code. I'm also going to exit, come back to Wikifighters, place it on imp, metric, place a comma on the end for reasons I explained before. And now we're being smart about it. We're not losing data. We're sanitizing it and replacing it. Again, you may not need to do any of this, but in case you do, this is how you handle. Either remove it all or replace it with you want at the place where it's happening. Let's rerun our application to make sure that it's working. Come back to the collected file, format, and jump to the top. And there we have it. This will be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions or want to say thank you, leave it in the comment section. As always, very big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Your help is very much appreciated. If you want the source code, come support me on my Patreon. Hope everybody is healthy out there and have a good day.